From the headquarters of the Guild of Champions, this is the Chris Terrell Podcast, and I am your host, Chris Terrell, and welcome to another week of your weight loss quest. How did this last week go for you, champion? What new challenges did you encounter? But more importantly, what failure did you go through? But what I really want to know is, what lesson did you get from that failure? Come on now. Don't let a perfectly good failure go by without you getting your lesson. That's your reward for your trouble. Now, if you're new here, I've lost 125 pounds myself after an entire adulthood of chronic yo-yo dieting. Up, down again before I finally got sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I made some permanent, meaningful, and actual changes to my life formula. You know, your lifestyle, habits, beliefs, your environment, community, and to your system of belief. Because it's all of those things that create you. And if you want to get new results, you're going to have to go all the way back and change those things. That's what I did. And I have been keeping the weight off because I did that. Because I made the deep changes at the core of myself and of my life. I did not, however, do it all at once. That would have been hard and probably not even successful had I tried. It started small, painfully small. I'm just going to eat when I'm hungry, and I'm going to work out for 20 minutes, 3 times a week, and I'm just going to get a little sleep. Just keeping it simple. That's where this journey started. And you know what? A month into the journey, I hadn't lost that much weight, just a few pounds. And yet, I felt different. Something had changed. For the first time in my life, I wasn't dieting. I was losing weight. I wasn't trying to change my food, thinking it's somehow going to fix my life. I just instead decided to fix my life. Now, none of it happened fast. It was all really slow, and it took far longer than I thought it should take. But somewhere along the way, I don't exactly know when, it wasn't a distinct moment, it was just sort of something that arrived. I began to realize that the journey's just going to take as long as it takes. I had told myself that in the beginning, like it takes as long as it takes, but that was intellectually. I emotionally resigned myself to that reality somewhere in the middle. I don't remember exactly where, but I had pretty much just accepted that I'm just going to keep doing this until I'm done. Because what is there to, it's not like I can fast forward it. I fast forward the weight loss. Okay, well, I'm still got to go keep taking care of myself. I don't get to go backwards. I don't get to go back to living a life where I don't take care of my body, where I don't take care of my mind, where I don't manage my activities, where I don't ever say no to people, where I don't make sure that my needs are met. I can't go back to that because I tried that. I tried to be happy while letting life be that way. And that just left me unhappy. And so then I think, well, let me just go buy something. Let me get some new promotion. Let me lose some weight. Let me buy this new trinket. Let me beat this new game. Let me have this one more epic game night. I was just always looking for this thing outside of me that if I just changed it, I'd feel good on the inside. I'd feel the love that I felt that I deserved. I'd feel the acceptance that I felt that I deserved. I'd feel free from guilt. I'd feel free from shame. I'd feel free to just be myself. I'd feel accepted. I'd feel good enough if I just found that thing that needed to be changed and changed it. And so I tried to change all the things. And when all the things I could think of had been changed, I'd go online and I'd look for other things. But the problem is I would come into some things that were hard, that were really hard. And I was like, well, I want all this inner peace and I want this satisfaction and feel enough, but I don't want to do it the hard way. Is there an easy way to do it? Well, yeah, but I didn't want to do it the easy way either. I wanted to do it the impossible way. I wanted to do it the way where I didn't have to change anything. Where it's like, can I just have the benefits of being changed without actually going through change? Like the whole going through change bit's kind of painful, you know, because you have to like let go of things that you like and just let them go and then grieve them. I mean, that's a bummer. That's a bummer when you do that. But you got it, because you got to let things go out of your life so that new things can come into it. That's important. And a weight loss journey is going to require you to let some things go if you're going to lose the weight forever. If you were 100 pounds overweight, if you were 200 pounds overweight, make no mistake about it. Your lifestyle contributed to it. Did you also maybe have some things in your biological body that contributed to it? Possibly. Some of you, yeah, that could be. But that doesn't mean the lifestyle part isn't real. No, that part is real. It's an and thing. It is, I have my lifestyle that I created is contributing to my weight gain. And there could be some other things contributing to weight gain. You hear the and part, right? The life's not black and white. It's not this binary thing, as much as some of us might like it to be. I mean, I sure wish life was simpler to figure out. But it's not. Life's complicated. And often some really important parts of life don't come with guidebooks and instruction manuals, and no one's coming to check on you to make sure that you're handling life okay. You know, you have to go make sure you're getting checked on. But I digress. Here's another thing I learned on the weight loss journey that I really want to make sure you know. And that is the free Facebook group for my community, the Chris Terrell coaching community, is the best one out there. And you should come join it, and it's totally free. And there's a link to it in the show notes. Like, this is something I didn't know on my weight loss journey, that existed, because it didn't exist then. But now I know it exists. And so I'm here to tell you about it. And I'd love to invite you to come and join the free Facebook group. Also, you can find if you want to learn about my products, my services, things that I offer, you can head on over to christerrellcoaching.com and you will find everything there. And if you're seeing this at a certain point, there's going to be a new website. So I'm going to go ahead and just start saying it, even though the old website is still very much there in place at the time of me saying it. So I ruined the surprise. You're not seeing the new website, but I guess I said I'm getting a new one. Anyway, I'm digressing once more. Let's bring this back to the point of today. Oh, wait, one more thing. My Spotify listeners, hey, I love it when you shout out to me using the give me the feedback part down there. If you're listening to me right now on Spotify, which is almost 60% of you, by the way, so good chance you're one of them. If you pick up your phone right now, it's okay. You can do it unless you're driving. Don't touch it. But get your phone out right now and you look there where there's like show notes and all that stuff. There's links and whatnot. But there's a spot there where you can leave me a comment and tell me what you think. If you like something, tell me. If you didn't like something, tell me. If you want something on the show that you've not seen before, tell me. If you want more of something else, tell me. I want to hear from you. And truly, last thing, I'm posting more on YouTube now, and I go live there every Monday morning at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. So if you want to be sure to catch the live, you can be in the Facebook group. I always ping the group there, but also you can subscribe and hit the notification bell in YouTube, and you will be notified every time I go live if you would like to come and join that. Okay, now let's get to the topic of today. You might have noticed when you downloaded the episode that the runtime is a little bit longer. You also might have noticed that this is featuring Mike. So I have a guest on the show this week, and I'm very excited. We have been talking about this for a bit, and I'm super excited to have Mike come here to the podcast. I'm not going to say anything more here. I'm just going to go ahead and wrap this up, and we're going to transition over to the podcast. So without further fanfare, let us now head over to the interview with myself and Mike. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Chris.
It is good to have you on the podcast.
I think I started that very high-pitched. Just so everyone knows, I talk down here. Everything's much lower.
Nice and low. So I don't do a lot of guests. Mm-hmm. And I'm very excited to actually have you on because I'm always cautious of having other creators come on. Not because I'm all about sharing the love and whatnot. But what I find is a lot of people I talk to about weight loss, we either don't agree on much at all, or we agree on a bunch of it, but we really disagree on some of the fundamental sides of things. But you're one of the people that I don't know that I've ever heard a piece of content or seen anything how you approach weight loss. So I'm like, I don't know that I agree with that. Like I haven't heard anything. So for me, like I'm excited because I don't do that often. So for anybody listening, I think you're going to really enjoy this podcast. I think you're really enjoy hearing what Mike's got to say and hearing his perspective. But I would love to, Mike, take a few moments, introduce the audience to you, tell us your story, tell us about your weight loss journey and what's brought you here. And just, if you're open to it, take it from the top, start at the beginning, kind of set that scene. Where were you before you decided to start doing something? Like lead us up to that decision to change for you and take it from there.
So you don't know it, but you were present when I had decided to make this change to be a little bit more mindful of myself and mindful of my health and all that. I was watching your stuff a long time ago. So if you're appreciative of the fact that we agree on a lot of stuff, you kind of put that into me. So thank you very much. But
I didn't know that.
Some people who might know me right now understand and have heard me talk about my be kind to yourself message. I end every video with be kind to yourself, which is not very common in the fitness and weight loss space. It's not something that I had ever heard much of. There's a lot of the alpha grind set thing where everyone's like, you got to grind yourself into a fine paste to make this thing work, and you have to hate yourself all the way down. And I had realized early on that eventually you get sick of doing stuff for people that you hate. Like, you get sick of doing stuff for bad bosses. You get sick of doing stuff for commandeering parents or a spouse or a partner that's not giving you anything back. So when you are that person who you hate, eventually you're going to get tired of doing stuff for you. But unlike a job, you can't quit. And unlike parents, you can't move away. And unlike a spouse, you can't get divorced. You're just stuck with the person that you quit. And I quit myself a bunch of times. So it was June of 2022, I believe, where I had my first sort of experience with, let me back it up a little bit. I think I was starting to be kinder to myself at that point, but it wasn't where I wanted it to be. I was still losing weight by starving myself, by working out way too much. I think I should mention that I lost 110 pounds. For those of you who don't know.
Yeah, that's a good detail to know, for sure.
Very important, but you'll say that in the blurb to save me in the very beginning. So yeah, I lost 110 pounds, but I'm most proud of keeping the weight off. And the way that I've kept it off is by making sure that this journey stays sustainable. And not only sustainable, but fulfilling and lovely and kind and wonderful and exciting and disappointing every once in a while. But when it is disappointing, I just come out the other end by being kind to myself about it. I'll be talking to the guild today about one of my tools. So I'm very excited to do that.
Yeah, we're excited to have that today for sure. So tell us, what was your mindset? You're mentioning June 2022, but what was your mindset leading up to change? Because for a lot of people, I've seen that change starts with either a singular oh shit moment, like a bad picture or a number on the scale or size out of a clothing, or sometimes like it's several little oh shit moments that kind of build up. Like, what was yours? Did you have like a big moment? Was it a bunch of little moments? Kind of walk us through that decision to change for you, to go, I'm done going this direction, I'm going a new direction.
I'll give you two moments. The first one, the catalyzing moment that set me onto my journey. I think a lot of people are expecting that I'm going to have my arm in a bag of chips with my shirt covered in barbecue sauce somehow. Even though I wasn't dipping the chips in barbecue sauce, I just happened to have them from another meal that I was eating too much of. And then I have the wake-up call of, oh shit, I need to change. But quite honestly, the decision to change was not a very intense one. It was June of 2017. June's a big month for me as well, as I know it is for you. I was handed a bottle of kefir probiotic by a similarly rotund friend, and he said, this helps with cravings. And I was like, cravings. That's interesting. I had not thought of my eating as cravings. I had not thought of going to McDonald's 3 times a day as cravings. That was just the way that I ate. So, like, I wasn't particularly uncomfortable. I knew I was big, but I wasn't terribly uncomfortable with it. But it made me realize that, like, maybe I could do something about this extra weight. And then I started biking and not eating because I thought that's what you were supposed to do. But it was with a healthier mindset. It was with, I'm excited to do this. I can't wait for all this weight to come off. And it was fine for a couple of months. That tends to be the way it is in the beginning, right? And then that September, it started getting cold. Remember when it used to get cold? Yeah. Well, the weight came back. Surprise, because I went back inside a little more because it wasn't so expedient for me to be biking all the time. And the weight came back. And that's the first time I realized the weight could come back. And that's when the thoughts started getting negative about weight loss. That's when the negative thoughts
what do you
about
mean?
Oh,
you're saying the thoughts started getting negative. Like, in what way?
It was So, a little more backstory. I deal with anxiety and depression. I always have. But the weight loss kind of was exempt from it because I wasn't concerned about it. The anxiety and depression came from, I don't know if it came from it, but it was stoked by the fact that I had such a negative internal monologue. But my weight was free from it because it wasn't subject to my work. It wasn't subject to my perfectionism. And then once my body became my work, suddenly I was subject to my perfectionism, and therefore my body became under my lens. And the self-talk got incredibly negative very quickly. It was, okay, fat ass, what's up now? Where'd all this weight come from, huh? I thought you'd gotten rid of it. Why is it back? You were doing great. What happened? This is easy. People lose weight all the time. I had no idea anything about weight loss at that point. It's when you start, you start. So that's where I was. It was just getting to the colder months. I was gaining all my weight back. Didn't think that was a possibility. Wasn't expecting it. And suddenly I'm big again.
And when you say big again, what weight are we talking?
I never got back to my full. I was 265 at my heaviest, so about 30 shy of you. But I never gained all of it back. I think maybe I got to 250 or so. But I had lost like 40-something pounds that summer.
Oh, dude. Well, and I did that one year. Yeah, dropped 60 pounds. I mean, just felt like $1 million. And I remember literally the day I said, I'm never going to let myself go back. And it's funny. That was the day I had actually decided that I'm going to ease off of everything I was doing. That day I said that to my parents was the last day I was that weight.
Yeah.
For many, many, many years.
It's
and
really
it wasn't because I went down. I went back up. So I hear you. Man, yeah.
It's a big up and down journey. That was 7 years ago, 2017. Yeah.
All right. So you've lost weight. You're gaining it back. Where did you go from there? Like, how did you stop the gain and turn it the other direction? Like, did you turn it back downwards or did you start maintaining?
I turned it back. I didn't maintain until I found your stuff. It was 5 years of up and down, 5.5 years of up and down and never maintaining. I turned it around by thinking, well, I lost the weight by biking and not eating, so I'm going to do that again. And so I started doing that again, but I was biking through the winter now. And so I'm dealing with the snow on my face and everything back when I could deal with the cold. Now that I've lost the weight, I can't do that anymore. I also can't sit on a hard chair.
No,
that's something I wasn't expecting.
At all.
That's the worst. It's got to switch to like when you're standing and you shift your weight to one foot or the other. You got to shift your weight to one butt cheek or the other when you're in a hard chair.
It's funny. The middle seat became comfortable now, but the entire plane became uncomfortable now. Like sitting for longer than 30 minutes now is truly agonizing.
It's
like
so
even
bad.
if it's comfortable now. I hate it. I have to get up.
Oh God, it's awful.
You said it a couple times. I went back to biking and not eating. Now, do you mean like literally you weren't eating, or is this like hyperbole, like you just weren't eating a lot?
There would be days where I wouldn't eat anything. And then the days that I would eat something, I would eat very little. And then, of course, we know how that cycle ends. Most people know here listening how that cycle ends. We binge it all back very quickly. So, yeah.
So how long, like, was this a progressive, like, you work out hard, undereat by a ton, and then just randomly eat a whole bunch of food? Is that what you're saying you were doing?
Yeah, there'd be like 2 or 3 days where I was hardly eating anything and then suddenly binging it all back, and then 2 or 3 days biking as hard as I can, not eating as little as I can, and then binging again. And then going back to the foods that I would eat, like McDonald's, where I had said I used to go to McDonald's 3 times a day. I'd order 2 McDoubles without pickles, a large fry, and a large Sprite. And if I got there for breakfast for my third time, or first time really, 6 sausage burritos and a large Sprite. All in, just McDonald's calories alone was like almost 4,000 calories.
Wow. So how... And I know it's been a number of years, and I don't always remember all my justifications, but I'm curious if you remember them. Do you remember any of the justifications you were giving yourself in your mind to give yourself permission to do that?
Oh, yeah, I had no control over anything else in my life at all in any capacity. I was in a very unhealthy relationship. I was in a job that had me working 60 plus hours a week. I was still living at home at the time. So I just really didn't have any sort of control over anything. I was in a friend group that I sort of had to fight to be included in. So it was nice to get to voice a desire and have it fulfilled. And that was done through the drive-through window more times than was good for me.
Wow. So a lot of your life was not only was it not how you wanted it, it was negative.
Oh, very. Now,
So it wasn't like nothing, indifference, and it wasn't like an absence of positivity being brought to your life from, I wrote down your love life, work life, home life, social life. It sounds like what you're saying is these were all actually bringing you discomfort, pain, suffering, feelings of out of control. Is that what I'm hearing?
Oh, very much. And home life was fine. Like, I shout out to my parents.
Well, when I say
who are
home, I mean
listening
like
now.
you said you're living at home. Like you're like the physical dwelling. It's not like you were living in your ideal dream home
Yeah,
or dream
well,
location.
and
Not like
the
it was an
house good,
unpleasant.
and everything was good. But like when you're living at home, there's a certain degree of like I don't control this. This isn't mine. I'm still like living in someone else's home. So as comfortable as you are, it's still like I am sort of in my head kind of a kid at this point. I'm 22, 23 at this point. 30 now.
But this is really important because I've, in my own personal research and study with weight loss, I've really found myself going all in and studying about emotional eating. And one of the things I've learned about emotional eating is it's a cause and effect thing.
Oh, yeah.
And the cause is not usually, I mean, yeah, people like to talk about specifics, but the cause a lot of times can be boiled down to a loss of control, a loss of freedom, a loss of autonomy. And we try to counteract that by a showing of autonomy somewhere else in life. And that's why I think what you said earlier about the drive-thru is so powerful. It's like I'm being told no, all these places in life, I don't have control, but damn it, in this drive-thru window, I can rebel against all this control and speak into existence what I want. Wow, what a powerful way to conceptualize it, because that is what it is you're doing. You're speaking into existence what it is that you want to have to eat.
And back then, you and I both thought that we had no control. This was a lack of control. This was giving ourselves up to the idea of control. But in fact, it was the only place in which our opinions mattered.
Well, actually for me, if you were to ask me at the time, I was so disillusioned with myself. Because remember, for me, my journey started, I was in my 30s. So I had been this way for 20 some odd years.
Yeah.
Because I started gaining weight in middle school. If you'd have asked me, I would have said I'm in control. Like that's, now we're not talking like the binges and whatnot, but like just I'd go to McDonald's and get 1,000-calorie breakfast 7 days a week. But if you'd asked me, they're like, why do you do that? I'm like, well, it's what gets me out of bed. I look forward to this. I love doing this. This is my choice. But I didn't realize is I was a slave to my own impulses. I was a slave to my own cravings, and I just didn't know it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's. The binges. It's control. It is a grasp for control, which I don't think a lot of people
100%.
realize.
Yeah,
Like it doesn't
is a
feel
showing
like
of control.
Mm-hmm. It
No.
doesn't feel like control. And the common quote is, "I'm weak around this," or "I can't control myself around this." But in fact, sometimes it's the only thing we can control is the food that's in front of us or the food that's entering us.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, you have the life. That's very much how my situation was. I looked around my life and realized that my life's not how I want it, and it's providing me a great source of unhappiness in many aspects of it. I mean, sure, there were parts that they weren't necessarily making me unhappy, but they weren't making me happy. It was that kind of indifferent, kind of mediocre place, which is kind of almost worse because you can get stuck in mediocrity. There's no pain to get you to change. So let's go back to this. So you're getting stuck in this binge restrict cycle. How did you break that cycle and get past it? Because obviously you did, otherwise you wouldn't be where you are now. How'd you get past it?
Oh, right now I'm in a restrict cycle. Give me about 3 months, I'll be back, all the weight. But just cashing in while I can. Yeah, it took a long time. It was always just a matter of like, how long can I escape my willpower? It was always a battle against my willpower. I was always seeing how much progress can I make before I go back to eating the way that I was eating before, which I think is a message that a lot of people listening right now are familiar with, either in the past or currently. How much progress can I make before this all falls apart? And fast forward many years, one of the things that I realized was if it feels like it's a fight against your willpower, it is, and your time is limited. And you have to figure out how to make it not feel that way, or you are going to stop. As you should, because why would you do something that sucks for that long? There's no reason to.
And I've found a lot of times it's because we're doing too much. It's fine to use some willpower to get started, but yeah, if you're 2-3 weeks in and you're still using willpower, it's like, that means you're not using habit, and habit's where it's at. But what I really was there a turning point though, where it's like, something's got to change?
Oh yeah.
In my approach? What was that turning point?
June of 2022, 5 years later. We fast forward. I have lost 110 pounds at this point. Now
how did you do that?
Through every fad diet there ever was, more binging and restricting. I did keto a bunch of times. If any of you are on keto right now, there is help. Reach out. We'll get you out of there. I tried the shakes. I tried a couple of the pills.
Now, when you say tried, I just want to make sure I'm hearing correctly. Are you saying like you lost all 110, but you did it by cobbling together a bunch of different approaches throughout that process?
Oh yeah, it was never one for very long. It was, I'm going to lose. Every approach helps you lose weight for the most part. That's the thing.
At first, yeah.
Yeah. Like even the Walmart pills, you lose like 5 pounds or so, but it's all water weight, or it's all temporary because whatever weight you lost, your body's going to want back as soon as possible because you lost it quickly. So they all worked, and I just happened to do it in such a way where I would lose a little more weight than I would gain back a bunch of times. Or sometimes I'd go a little bit more over, but then I'd lose a little extra, and then I wouldn't gain all of it back. And it was just a very unpredictable cycle all the way down.
Got it. So when you got to the other side then, out of curiosity, because of the manner in which you lost weight, did you feel confident you were going to keep it off?
I didn't think I had this is where the body dysmorphia comes in, and kind of where this was the big oh shit moment. Like the one in the beginning that started the whole thing was sort of just like, whatever. I was handed that bottle of kefir probiotic, which if you've never had it, it's like yogurt's evil twin. It's awful. It helps with cravings by making you never want to eat again because it's disgusting.
That's one way to do it.
Which, it worked for a little while, but I gained all the weight back, so cautionary tale. 2022 in June, I decide, you know what? I'm sick of the up and down cycle. I'm sick of the unpredictability. I am just I'm not going to worry about the scale this time. I'm just going to walk. I'm going to eat a little bit less, and the fat will come off where the fat comes off. I didn't realize at the time. Now, mind you, I'm fairly tall. I'm about 6'3". I was 155 pounds. For those of you running to do the BMI calculation right now, you're just going to see a big red thing that says stop. When you look that up,
that's at 6'6", at your height, that's pretty scrawny.
Yeah, that's like Slender Man aesthetics at that point. So I'm not doing well. I've got a picture where I've just got this big giant bobblehead because that doesn't change when you lose weight. You still have a big skull if you have one. So on top of this little stick body, and I thought I was fat. And I thought that I still had to lose a bunch of weight.
So you couldn't see the weight loss, you're saying?
No. At that point, I knew that I was smaller, but I still thought that I was fat all over the place. And I'll send you the picture later of what I looked like. Maybe you can
please do.
Put it up. But so if you're watching a video and you see this picture right now, it's not healthy. But that guy thought he was fat. He had lost 110 pounds, which I had overshot my goal weight and didn't know because I wasn't looking at the scale. Because I had assumed if I stepped on it, it would ruin my day, and it probably would have. But at that certain point in June, I'd been walking for a while. I decided.
Okay, so you've now lost the weight.
Yeah.
Your mind is not really letting you see it. That body dysmorphic effect that so many of us feel. You're full in it. You overshot your stopping point, and actually, yeah, I think by all accounts, sounds like, and I think many people would agree. Like you definitely, yeah, you went pretty far. I mean, you were hyper focused on just losing weight. It sounds like not so much of attaining a specific look or physique is what it sounds like.
I just wanted to lose weight because skinny meant happy to me, and I still wasn't happy.
Got it.
So at a certain point,
how did that feel to be skinny and to not be happy when you had equated in your mind that skinny equals happy?
Well, once I ran the numbers and understood that I was underweight and could not safely lose more, I'm also a hypochondriac, so I'm like, I am going to stop regardless. But why is it that I still feel fat when the internet is telling me, when medical calculations are telling me that I'm not? And I look back at those pictures now and I recognize, like, that was a sick person. That was a person who was ill. That was a person who was hurting and needed something that wasn't weight loss. Weight loss was never going to fix anything. Skinny doesn't make happy. And I remember smiling in that picture because I was hoping my after picture would match it, that I would be able to also smile, but for real. And I cried afterward. That was a rough day, that one.
Yeah. Was that, if you're comfortable kind of cracking that open, because I think this is a really important thing for many people, because what you hit is something that I don't want people to hit. And I know you don't either. Like, y'all, skinny doesn't equal happy. Many of us have tried losing weight with the false belief that somehow it's going to improve our peace, our joy, our fulfillment in life, believing that we're enough, beginning to fully accept ourselves. And some people get it, but it's luck, honestly, at that point. And it wasn't because of the weight. It never has been because of the weight. Okay, so, stepping back, you're at this place, you're seeing that you didn't get the emotional experience that you thought you were going to get on the other side of the finish line. Take me to that place.
I was, like I said before, I had assumed skinny meant happy. That at a certain point I would hit a weight. My goal was always 165, and I didn't even realize I hit it. So at a certain point, I was 165 and unhappy. I just was avoiding the scale. So once I had gotten to 155, I'd lost the 110, because it was always, I wanted to lose 100 pounds. I still wasn't happy. And I couldn't understand why. I couldn't figure it out. I was just exercising, not eating, trying to figure out what diet can I do next, which exercise can I do next. It was never about what am I going to do forever. That wasn't an option. That wasn't on the table. I had not considered what if I just stay where I am, because I had not reached a weight at which I wanted to stay at that point. I had not reached a body shape that I wanted to stay at. And so I kept trying to find a different one. And it was when I found you talking about maintenance that I was like, oh, there's a secret third thing that I didn't know about before. It's just kind of staying where I am. Even though I'm not happy, maybe I could find happy here.
Get some stillness, so to speak. Now, you said a couple times, you said this phrase and several variations of it. I was avoiding the scale. What were you avoiding there? Like, I know it's the number, but like the number represented something.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you were worried about seeing a high number, one that went up, but like, what were you actually worried about finding there that you were avoiding?
Worried about seeing a number, honestly, because I never saw one that made me happy.
But when you saw the number, because it's just a number, it only has meaning because of the meaning you give it. What was the meaning you were giving that number that you were avoiding?
Failure. No matter what.
What if it went down?
If it went down, it wasn't enough.
So if it went up, failure. If it went down, it's not enough.
Yeah.
So
it was always
so
failure.
there was nothing good for you there.
No, there was, and that's why I'm saying, like, it didn't matter how much weight I lost. It was never enough. I could have always been doing more, or I could have always been achieving more, and whatever my standard was impossible. But it wasn't me trying to get down to a certain weight. It was me chasing happiness. It was me chasing fulfillment, and I just was looking at the number to try to indicate that, when it was never going to give it to me. No matter how hard I tried, no matter what number I was. That's where we fast forward into the future. With foresight, it all makes sense. Like, I needed to be kinder to myself. I needed to be kind to my mind and to my heart, and to fill my life with good things. And
when did you have that realization? Was that a sudden realization or a gradual one?
That was gradual, but that was sort of the moment that sparked it.
Yeah. So what did you start doing at that point to start moving away from this place of unfulfilled on the other side of a goal that has been achieved? I mean, because by many accounts, so many people listening right now are just thinking, gosh, I'd give anything to be there. I'd be so happy. And it's like probably very difficult for some to comprehend. How could you have the goal, in fact, having overshot it, and still not be happy? That's because weight loss doesn't equal happiness. So for you, you're at this place. How did you get out of it? Where'd you go?
Like
you said, you found some of my stuff, but like that had to have gotten you to think something and gotten you to take some action. What were those thoughts? What was that action?
I feel like I definitely had to learn the lesson the hard way, which it sucks that I had to. I would not have believed it. I think often about if I could go back to my 2017 self and tell him like what I know now, he'd be like, screw you. I'm just going to do whatever I want. I'm going to lose all this weight any way that I want. But it was a very gradual change from there. It was, yeah, I had seen, you had just planted the seed in my head of maybe it's more than just weight. Maybe I can stay where I'm at and build a life around it. And because that's what I wasn't building with the weight loss. Often now I'll say you can't remove to improve. And that's all I was doing, was removing to improve. I wasn't improving.
So you removed, but you forgot to bring in the improvement.
Yeah. I kept removing and removing. And I'm like, well, the improvement will come at some point. No, you have to bring the improvement. The improvement comes through you. But
that is important, though, to everybody. Pause. It's very important what Mike just mentioned here. The removing is important, but it's only step one. Like, that's not end of list. That's now go to step two. Fill the space with a life you love. Because really, if we go back to what you were saying earlier, what I hear is you were living a life you didn't love, but at least food was there.
Mm-hmm. That's all it was.
And it could provide these, and these momentary escapes. And so you took away that, and then you get down there. Was life much better at this point?
It was worse. I was happier when I was fat at that point. When I looked at my 155-pound self, I was way happier when I was fat.
Well, that's got to be a little bit like a slap in the face with a dead fish. Like, it's just the worst thing ever. It's like, wait, I'm not happier. I'm worse. And wow. Yeah, man, what a mind twist. So walk us through the story from there to where you are now.
So at that point, I'm like, well, I enjoy my walks. So why don't I just make them shorter? Because at that point I was walking like 7-8 miles a day, 10 sometimes. Like nowadays that's not too rough if I do that in a day, but like every day I had a circuit that I was doing and barely eating as I was doing it. Mind you, I've got a heart condition and low blood pressure, so like this was dangerous for me to be doing. But in pursuit of weight loss, in pursuit of the happiness that I needed so desperately, I figured, why not give it a shot? And we'll fast forward another year to another June of 2023. I had started to be kinder to myself a little bit. I was making videos of my own, sharing some tips that I had. But I was still dealing with binges occasionally. I was working on trying to cut them down more and more. It's a slow process. They will happen. Even as you're recovering, they will go on. It's just a matter of what do we do about them? We take them as, like you said before, you're not going to get your failure and not get your lesson from it. That's how you started this podcast and how you start them all. So why fail without getting your lesson? And I had failed pretty hard one day in June of 23, and I dragged myself to the gym anyway, because I'm like, well, I may as well go. And I sat in the parking lot for about 45 minutes or so, and just trying to draft up every excuse I could to not go inside. And I was speaking very negatively to myself, as I was still commonly doing at that point. And right as I was about to pull out, I caught my reflection in a tinted window next to me, which if you're in Jersey, that's not legal to have tinted windows. So I'm like, well, that's a risk. But the bulgy reflection that shot back to me looked like me in the past, someone I had not resembled in a very long time. And I'm like, well, I can't go in there for me, but I have to go in there for him. And
so are you saying you saw, like, in your mind's eye, your old self?
Yeah, it just kind of like the reflection was enough that like it just rounded out my face again, and like the eyes looked kind of sad.
You're talking the distortion from the car window literally made you see a bigger version of yourself.
Literally a larger version of myself.
Not metaphorically speaking, literally. Okay.
No, it wasn't just
seeing that
like a force ghost. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It was like literally.
Okay. And I know those surprise reflections on these journeys, which, by the way, y'all, you're on the journey long enough. Surprise reflections, they can trigger all sorts of emotions in all sorts of different ways. So you caught a surprise reflection that showed a bigger version of you. Okay, continue.
An actual bigger version, not the bigger version that existed in my head, but like suddenly I'm seeing this large round face next to me, and it doesn't register with the face that I'm seeing in the mirror all the time, which I still think is too big at this time. And I'm like, if I scrolled through my camera roll to try to get to a picture that looks like this, I'm scrolling like 6 years, 7 years to get there. So I'm like, hey, let's go into the gym. And I'm kind of talking to him at this point. I'm kind of talking to the guy who started my journey. And I'm like, let me show you what we can do now. Because of what you did. Because of what you started us on the path of. And I had one of the best workouts of my life, Chris. I was in there doing sets, kind of almost showing off to my old self. I was crying in the gym. Some people may recognize this story because I've told it a couple of times. I cried at the gym. And so like I'm just doing these sets and crying and laughing and smiling, and people must be like, this guy is having his Joker moment right now. Like there's something deeply wrong with this man. But no, everything was right finally in that moment. I'm like, and you have a quote that's very meaningful to me. And you said, I was not two people, but one person who had grown. So I'm looking back at this old version of myself with reverence, and gratitude for getting me to where I was, despite not knowing the stuff that I know or not having the proof of the things that I had proof of. And then realizing that I am that person. I'm the same guy. If I can have reverence for him and respect for him, I can have respect for me. And it hasn't been smooth sailing ever since, but it's been much smoother.
What I'm hearing, though, is really powerful, is you finally connected with your old self on an emotional level, but it was from a place of acceptance, and you expressed gratitude for your old self. But express gratitude for what?
For starting the journey. There are things that I'm afraid to do now. Or not now, but there historically have been things I've been afraid to do because I feel like I don't know enough. Or I feel like I won't succeed if I try. And then I look back at this portly 265-year-old guy and realize that without his decision to start me on the path that I'm now on and always will be on, I don't exist. I'm still big. I'm still 265-pound Mike. But he changed that. Now, if I gained all the weight back tomorrow, I could lose it. I'm not worried about it. I'm also not worried about gaining it anymore.
I think I had my moments too of connecting with my old self in the beginning. And my relationship with myself has really changed because, at one point it felt very much like I'm running away from myself in the beginning of the journey. Hey, let me lose as much weight as possible. Let me change as much about my life as I can, all in the name of getting away from me. And yet everywhere I go, there I was. And it was finally when I realized I can't run away from me. But man, when I started looking back at my old self and thinking, that guy had no evidence to believe it was possible. He had, if anything, if he had looked at his past, all he would see is a string of failures and weight regain, every time being heavier than starting off. So it's like, if anything, all the evidence showed that success is not going to happen. And yet, for whatever reason, that guy decided to say, I'm just not going to quit. Because maybe if I don't quit, I'll make it. Right? Who knows how long it takes? But it's just like, I am so grateful for myself in the beginning because against all odds, against all evidence, with no concept or awareness of a plan forward that would actually work, just a whole series of plans that I knew didn't work. That's about all I had. At least I knew what not to do, everything I had done. So I had a not to do list. That's all I had. I didn't have a to-do list. It was just not that list. And just taking imperfect action going forward, just going like, I don't know if it's going to work, but if it doesn't, I'll pivot. And if that didn't work, fine, I'll pivot again. I'll pivot as many times as necessary. But I just look back to that old version of me. It's like, wow, the real champion, the real badass is not the me here at the other end. It's the me in the beginning. Because not only that, I had all my broke mindset still. My brain, while things were shifting, I still very much was ruled by a lot of emotions like guilt and shame and grief and anger and regret. Like those things very much ruled my life at that point. Feelings of not being enough. But it's almost like I was reaching this place of like, I've had it. I can't live this way anymore. And I just think to that guy, and it's just ever since I repaired that relationship with my old self, my future has just become immeasurably brighter because it's like I don't worry as much.
Can we talk really quick about the role that guilt and shame and regret play in our journeys? Because they actually do play a very important role.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's an interesting thing because it sounds like these are things we should be getting rid of. These are things that we should not have. And of course we shouldn't, not in the way that we start to have them. I'm not telling you to stay guilty and stay shameful. Like there's a lot of gym bros on Instagram that'll tell you that, not us. But they played a role at a certain point. Those mindsets were important when they were implemented. Let's talk about self-deprecation, which I'm very familiar with. If you beat someone to the punch, you own the joke. It's a grasp at control. So self-deprecation, self-shaming served the purpose of defending you. It had a net negative at the end of it because you then are talking down to yourself and you're reprogramming the way you think about yourself, but it served a purpose.
It did, yeah, at first. I do magic, street magic, up close magic. Really? Not much anymore, but there for a while I was very good and doing it all the time. But when taking a showmanship course, I was taught about using self-deprecating techniques to, it was 100% a control technique to manipulate the audience. Now in magic, it's very easy to disassociate from it because it's all a show. It's all an act. But when we're doing it for ourselves, like, oh, me, the fat ass. Oh, me, old fatty. Oh, big Chris. Is this chair made for big people? Because I'm a pretty big person. I was at a Tough Mudder just not too long ago with a bunch of people from the guild in Philadelphia, and there's this obstacle called Hell's Ladder. It's this obstacle you climb up and over. It's got these wooden rungs, and it's a little challenging to climb up it, but these are literal telephone poles buried into the ground with 2x12s attached to it. Like this thing is solid and is literally crawling with people. And I'm sitting there on the top. I'm running it with folks from the guild, which by the way, most of them are still well into their, plenty of left on their journey to go. Sure, there's plenty that are far on the other side, but there's plenty of big folks still climbing it because they're on their journey saying, I ain't waiting until I lose the weight to enjoy life. And they're going through it with a great attitude. I can do it. I'm coaching them through, and I'm sitting there looking. This guy walks up, it's like, I don't know. Is this made for someone as big as me? And I'm literally looking, and I look at him, I'm like, yo. And I pointed to the multiple bigger people on the thing that were running with me. I'm like, it's fine. Like, because I just felt, I'm like, man, stop undercutting yourself. And he looked up, he saw them, he saw the big, I'm like, you're fine. And he still doubled down on the self-deprecation, because the problem I discovered is, and I've seen this, when we use it as a tool to control the perception of others about ourselves, before we know it, we get so hooked on it that it becomes automatic to talk shit about ourselves. And then we start believing it's just who we are. I'm just the big guy. So that's the danger of self-deprecation, everybody listening. It does, because what Mike's talking about is true. It works. It 100% works. But you can get, the problem is you're listening too. So, all right, sorry, I kind of hijacked that. Continue.
No, that's exactly where I wanted the conversation to go. Like, and don't apologize for adding something valuable to a conversation.
Fair point.
That might be
point.
a little bit
Touché.
of a subconscious thing for you as well. I'm still dealing with that myself, apologizing just for simply taking up space. That was a very valuable addition, Chris Terrell. So
fair point. All right, let me reframe that. Thank you for letting me take that on a slightly different path there. But continue. What were you? So you're in the self-deprecating place.
And real quick, right before we get there, that actually plays into the lesson that I'm going to be teaching in the Guild today about just replacing one-to-one mindsets. So those two are accomplishing the same thing. When you say, like, oh, am I sorry for taking up the space and thank you for allowing me to, are accomplishing the same thing. It's acknowledging that you took up space and that you want to make sure that it's okay. One of them assumes guilt immediately. It assumes that you shouldn't have. The other one just thanks you for taking up the space. It doesn't necessarily make you deserving of it. Like, maybe you did say too much. But you're not the one to assume that. You're going to let someone else decide. You're not going to tell them how to feel about it.
Well,
So-
I want to say thank you for calling me out on that, actually, because you're right. Needless apologies. All right, I'm about to say something, so I don't know if some people are going to like, but I this is something I'm really working on in my own life, actually, is needless apologizing. My wife and I are both working on it, because here's what I've realized. A lot of people are using apologies as manipulation tactics. They're not actually using it for altruistic purposes. And I was 100% doing them that way too, but it becomes so subconscious and automatic that you're right. You eventually, before we know it, we're apologizing for taking up space. It's like, what? I'm apologizing for my existence. I'm apologizing for my thoughts, my words. And you're right. That's exactly what I just did. But it's so important that we catch ourselves, and everybody just listening in. This is why I like talking to Mike. Why I like having my life full of people like Mike, is because you got to be able to call each other out on your shit. You got to be like, hey, don't say that. Try again. Like, all right, fair point. Thank you. Because it does become automatic. It's hard to recondition multiple decades of needless apologizing, especially when it's not actually, because you're right. I'm sorry isn't what I meant. Thank you is what I meant. And so, yeah. Oh, thank you for bringing that up.
If it wasn't so top of my mind right now, just because that's the lesson I'm giving today, but now I didn't mention needless apologies, so that's going to be something I'll talk about today.
Gonna add it in. Good.
Somehow
good. Yeah,
completely
it's so
forgot
important
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and everybody listening, you don't have to apologize for existing. You don't have to apologize for having an opinion. Like, your thoughts are valid. Your experience is valid, but unfortunately, you have to give yourself that permission. Like, no one else can be a substitute for you giving yourself that. All right, so but continue what you're saying with the guilt and the shame and stuff.
Yeah. So that was an example of
what you're
a
saying.
one-to-one replacement of taking something, figuring out what the purpose of it was, and replacing it with something that does the same thing. So we're not removing it. We are adding something to it. We're replacing it. So with guilt, what purpose could guilt possibly serve? Do you have any ideas on this?
Yeah. Positive or negative?
I guess neutral, really. It's because we don't really think of it as a negative when it's happening.
Well, for me, guilt, I think of it as an emotion. It's an emotion, and therefore the emotion is being triggered by thoughts of some kind. And we don't have to be consciously aware of those thoughts necessarily for the guilt to be there. But I guess for me, if I'm just thinking from a utilitarian indifference place, guilt is a version of regret.
Mhm.
I wish I had done something different, which I think might also could be projected into maybe I should do something different in the future, but I don't think that's necessarily always the case that people think that.
And within that, you have the one-to-one replacement. With the first one of the guilt being there, of telling yourself, like, how could I have done that? That's awful. I can't believe that I did it again. It's usually chronic at that point. It's something where someone believes they're just the epicenter of all bad things that ever happened. So, but replacing that with, I wish I had done that differently, accomplishes the same thing as the guilt does. It just doesn't criminalize you immediately. It says, okay, well, I still messed up. Something happened, but like, I'm not deserving of it just because it went wrong. And I want to improve. The guilt doesn't give you any room to grow. The guilt doesn't give you any room to change. Whereas I wish I had done something better also does not exonerate you. It does push you to do better, but it doesn't push you to do worse, because I think some people will double down and decide. Sometimes guilt will happen when we hurt someone, or we feel that we've hurt someone. And the response...
I don't think guilt is bad in and of itself, necessarily.
No, we should
but
have
I think it's a problem if guilt is how you run your life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that's problematic.
Well, people will double down into making that their personality. It's anytime I talk about being kind to myself on my Instagram, which is @MikeNeedsAPlan, you will see people in the comments talking about, well, I deserve it. Maybe all these other people don't deserve it, but I do deserve it. I've done something uniquely awful and terrible, so I'm just going to keep being that. And in that case, one of two things is true. One, you've done something awful and you're proud of it, in which case, like, fuck you. Or number two, you've done something wrong or you've done something wrong and feel good about it. I don't know if I said that. But number two, you've done something wrong and you feel bad about it, in which case, cool. You've acknowledged you did something wrong. Is the right way to react to that to become more of the person that hurt the people you care about? Or is the correct reaction to become a person who would never do that again? Doubling down into the guilt doesn't help anyone.
You're using a word. I'm going to kind of now divert us a little bit. This will be kind of fun to see where this goes, see where the rabbit hole takes us. You use the word wrong. So I once very much thought black and white in the world, right, wrong. Now, in other parts of life, I was very comfortable in the gray. But with regards to self-worth, with regards to how I saw myself, with regards to my relationship with myself, I very much thought in terms of right and wrong. Now I feel a little differently about it. I now think more in terms of helpful and unhelpful, productive or unproductive. I'm curious what you think with regards to right and wrong when we're talking about achieving personal goals and self-worth improvement or weight loss.
So there are things that are morally right and morally wrong, I think, like pretty definitively, like racism is wrong. But aside from stuff like that, it is just a lot of helpful and unhelpful. Often because I think the same way about helpful and unhelpful. I just kind of use right and wrong to communicate with people who still think that way. Because the helpful versus unhelpful conversation is an entire other conversation. Like, it's a whole new skill. So
that is true. Now, this is where I'll be curious to know what you think. Because I have to remember that I'm also my own unique individual on my own journey. And I actually sometimes struggle to talk. People may have noticed, and actually sometimes people will send me a message like, Chris, I don't like that you use like a condescending tone when you talk about certain beliefs. I'm like, y'all, you have to understand, I'm saying them. Like, I am an overeater in recovery. Like, I have to be careful with certain words. So literally there's some beliefs, there's some ways of talking. I intentionally talk in a goofy, stupid voice because I need the belief to sound asinine. I need it to be like, this is a ridiculous belief to believe. I don't know why I would ever believe it. I have to do it because that's me insulating my own self from adopting a belief. Because I've learned if I think a belief is silly, I'm less likely to want to adopt it. And so I do now have to think of things as silly. But the other things I've discovered is, as I've recontextualized things in my mind, I actually have a hard time reverting back sometimes to other, like in terms of helpful, unhelpful. I still say right and wrong, But sometimes I get worried I'm confusing people because I'm worried I'm propagating the notion of right and wrong. Because it's so situation dependent, right? Like it's like having, let's say, a donut. Sometimes it's the wrong answer. Sometimes it's the right answer. Sometimes it really is neither. Like the situation impacts it.
It's not morally incorrect, though. Like it is
No.
the wrong
Yeah.
choice, but it is. You are not wrong for doing it. You are not a bad person for doing it.
And that right there, we got to look at weight gain. It's not a moral failing, which I know you're with me, but I definitely once thought of it as a moral failing.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever think of it that way?
Oh, constantly. I mean, I thought of everything I had done as a moral failing. This goes way deeper than weight. The weight loss
Of course.
kind of really should just be a side effect to becoming a happier person. Like with my one-on-one clients, we are focused. Some people come to me without any weight to lose. And I think I've told you that before. Like there are people who are just trying to reprogram their negative inner self-talk, and that's all we work on. We never talk about calories. They've lost.
Yeah, I have the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's people don't realize that. Like that. I mean, I have some bigger clients, and I've had some bigger clients, but like a lot of people don't lose a ton of weight with me. I set them on a path to lose the weight slowly, much longer past the time we work together, because like 10 weeks is not nearly enough time to grow. Not at all.
No,
10 weeks is baby time.
It's barely enough time for one good epiphany.
Yeah, at all. So it's if I can set somebody on the path of like, here's where you need to be looking for all of the lessons that will help you continue going forward. Like that's what I want. That's what I want. I want 6 months from now, a year from now, to get a picture from them where we're just friends now. It's no longer client coach. We're just every once in a while like, hey, what's going on? And they send me a picture and they fit in a shirt they haven't worn since high school. Because like they're just doing it now. They're out of the system. They don't have to deal with Weight Watchers trying to pull them back in every couple of months. Hey, you lost 15 pounds with us last time. Why don't you get another subscription? Or why don't we get you on the GLP-1s or anything like that? Like,
They're just trying to help you solve weight and not trying to treat the whole human.
And that's my big issue with the GLP-1s. Not the people who take them, but the way that it minimizes health down to weight. The way that it minimizes
I look at it as if a person is still under the old belief, the false belief that losing weight will make you happy, a GLP-1 for some people without being called this could be considered a happiness pill.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
I take this pill and it makes me happy because I'm losing weight.
Mm-hmm. And I'm
not saying everybody thinks that way. I know not everybody does, but I know some do. I talk to them.
Yeah. I am one of those people who thought that for a long time.
No, I mean people that take the GLP-1s and they just think I've made life better. They don't think of it as I've talked to people. They're like, no, this is it. I do this and my life got better. Because for some people, they take it and the weight just starts melting off of them. It's just like weight loss surgery. A person gets it, the weight starts melting off of them. Oh, this is great. I'm better. It's like, no, your life's still the same. You're just smaller in it.
And it's not their fault that they think that. Because
all
of the advertisements, all of the rhetoric is people selling the idea that you take this and it fixes everything. I don't blame anyone.
Well, we're conditioned to think this way, that way.
Society.
I was doing a live event in Atlanta several months ago, and somebody raised their hand, and she said, "I just didn't know there was a better way. What about that? I just didn't know there was this other way of losing weight that's slow, that's stable. Did you work on the whole person? Like, I just didn't know it existed." And I think that's part of the problem is there's so much noise in the industry and so much money thrown into marketing at these big behemoth weight loss companies that it drowns out the truth. I mean, we've made weight loss seem complicated so that therefore people can sell solutions to the complicated problem. But we know that like losing weight, if you're willing to do it slow, isn't actually that hard. What's hard is changing your actual life. Like that's difficult. That takes time. Most people aren't willing to drop a grenade on their life and just reset it over a period of a few weeks, or a few months. Most people, they're like, no, I got to fix this while I'm living it.
Well, that's the thing is some people do try to drop grenades on their lives. I did it plenty of times. And when you drop a grenade on your house, it's going to level it. But where are you going to live afterward? It's like,
well, I think part of it is sometimes what I did is you had to drop something bigger. I dropped a nuke on my life when I decided. I sold everything. I got out of my relationship. I got out of my job. I sold my house. And when I say sold everything, I'm talking about 80% of my possessions I sold. I stopped dating. I said, I will not date anyone until I love myself. Because I said, I'm going to date me for a while because I don't know who I am and my relationship with myself is terrible. So glad I did that. Like, I literally would take myself out on dates is what I considered them. Because I'm like, I don't know who I am. Like, I don't know. I don't love me. I'm like, well, I got to spend the time, right? And anyway, I literally, every part of my life, if it wasn't good, I just said, I'm going to just get rid of it. Nothing will be better than what I have. So I'm just going to clear the plate. But I think part of it was like, it's what you said earlier, like it's step one, which is clear the table. But step two is you got to rebuild something better, not rebuild the same. Right? And a lot of people don't want to do it because the rebuilding takes for damn ever.
It's
long
slow process. And also you have to learn how to build. You don't know how to build in the beginning. So when you start on this house reconstruction project, so long as we go down this allegory here, you then have to figure out how to build a house. And that's not just putting wood and screws together. There's a bunch of other stuff that goes into it. Not only is there not the structural pieces of it, you got to put plumbing in there. And there's wiring. And then not only that,
you don't even know what it is you don't know when you're building your new life.
You have no idea. And then when you go to build it, and I think you've said this before, sometimes you're going to have a couple extra screws in your hand and wonder where they were supposed to go.
Well, and this is why I've realized it's so important that when anybody is setting off on a journey like this, if you got to lose 200, 300 pounds, let's make no mistake about it. Your whole life needs to look different by the time you're done. And I'm not bashful about saying it. I used to be bashful about saying that to people, actually. Like, hey, your life needs to go away and you need a new one. But it needs to be upgrades. Like, don't replace it with something not better. Like, don't replace it with the same. Like, no, that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to level up, outgrow the weight, not lose the weight. Like, get rid of all the reasons why you need food. A person will say, food is all I have. I'm like, well, now we know the answer. Go get more in your life. Well, I can't have more. Well, that's just a belief problem. Like, most problems in life outside of health can be solved. And even then, once you get a little money, it's amazing what you can solve by just throwing some money at it. And so sometimes it's just like, well, I can't get my income up. I'm like, again, that's just a belief thing. Your income can go up. Like, this is a solvable problem. But far too many of us, they start changing our life, and then the fear sets in of, oh shit, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know where to go. And so when all that is there, that's where I've realized it's so important to have individuals in your life that you can talk to, that you can model, so that you don't accidentally rebuild. Because what I've seen rebuild the old place. And that's why I think it's so important when losing weight that you're not getting advice from other overweight people. Because you'll just end up like them. They're going to give you advice that they take, which, look at them. That's the results they have. You're going to get the same. You got to go talk to people that have lost weight and kept it off.
Oh, well, I lost 15 pounds doing intermittent fasting, but I gained 20 back, but I lost 15 pounds doing intermittent fasting. I don't know anyone in my life who has been on a cycle of intermittent fasting that has kept the weight off yet.
I've met a few now, but the only reason they did it is they literally made it their lifestyle.
And it works for them.
They literally baked it into their life. That's the only, and I think but that's the same thing that we're talking about. It's just lifestyle change. Yeah. If you decided you want to, I don't know why you would, but if you decided you want to bake intermittent fasting into your life and you're going to do it for 10 years, like personally, I would sign off on that. I would just be like, you need to understand though, if you slip, you're not that person. Here's how I equate it. I've had to learn, because personal finance is something I like to nerd out about. There's credit card people and non-credit card people. Do you know how you tell which is which?
How?
If you pay any interest, even $1 in a year, you're not a credit card person. If you pay as much as $1 in interest, you're not a credit card person because you don't know how to manage. That means you can't manage it. $1. So that's what I've told myself. I have some credit cards now that I use, and I've told myself if I have $1 in interest, all credit cards get canceled immediately, and then I will go years, and then I will then let myself bring it back because I'll have demonstrated to myself, nope, you don't have the discipline to do it. And this is the way I would look at intermittent fasting. I'm like, look, if you want to bake it into your life, great. But if you slip into a binge every couple of weeks, nope, You're not an intermittent fasting person. That's not who you are. Or like if you're going to do vegetarian, but you just can't seem to do it because actually you're a closet orthorexic. And it's like, oh, nope, I keep slipping. I'm like, no, you're not a vegetarian. If you keep slipping every other week, you're not a vegetarian. Like, we need to get to why you're wanting to do this because there's not real clarity on your motives, or your motives aren't sufficiently strong enough. And so, I don't know, what do you think of all that?
It's if you're the kind of person who doesn't get hungry until 2 p.m, go ahead. You're already doing it. The people for whom intermittent fasting is going to work, I believe, they're already doing it. Just as a default characteristic of them being a human being on this planet and being programmed that way. I like my little goblin meals through the day. I like just grazing because I like eating. We don't get to be as big as we do without liking eating. It's eating food feels good. Is like
it's fun.
To everyone
also,
listening.
I mean, we need it to sustain life.
Yeah,
like it's a very human thing to want to enjoy eating.
But like,
but you said something important.
Yeah.
If you're already doing it, like. I was actually embarrassed for a long time. I didn't want to tell people that I skipped breakfast most of the time when losing weight because people were like, oh, so you're intermittent fasting. I was like, no. Like, well, you weren't eating in the morning till lunch. I'm like, that's just because that's how I chose to create a calorie deficit because I wasn't hungry in the mornings.
Yeah.
Like I was only a little hungry and I could distract myself with work. I'm like, whereas later in the day, that got harder. But not that I couldn't eat breakfast. Some days I woke up, I'm like, I'm going to have breakfast. Because I'm not an intermittent faster. I'm just living in a calorie deficit, and I have to say no somewhere to create it. And so I picked the places that I'm the most comfortable doing it. I wasn't going to say no to my evening snacks. I liked my evening snacks. I didn't want to give them up, but I was perfectly happy to give up morning snacks. I got to give up something.
We just have to change
but
the
I think
way
that's,
we're
yeah,
eating.
it's when a person, say that again?
We just have to change the way we're eating. We don't even often have to change the things we're eating, just the way we're eating. Like
yeah, just the way in the portions.
Yeah, I don't go through drive-thrus. Have I told you this?
No,
I've not gone through a drive-thru in 6 years.
Well, when are you going to change that?
I'm not going to ever. If I want the food, I'll go inside.
Why are you so afraid of a drive-thru?
I'm not afraid of the drive-thru. If I want the food, I want it enough to go inside.
Interesting.
The drive-thru, I realized at a certain point, I can't cut out the fast food. Because that's telling myself.
Oh, yeah, I still
no.
have fast food regularly.
Yeah, I don't even have it regularly anymore. Every time I try to
I didn't, but as life got stupid busy for me, it started, I had to learn how to eat there and it not mess me up because it's just like, sometimes it's literally, it started frequently turning into is literally all I have time for.
Yeah. Well, you have a very busy schedule. You have stuff that you got to take care of and all that. And you're traveling all over the place now, doing all these guild meetings, which I'm going to make it to Chicago and Dallas. I'll be there at both.
Oh, you're going to come to Chicago too?
Why not?
Oh, it's going to be fun. Chicago's going to be great.
That's another part of my
It's a
new
repeat.
life.
We were there last year.
Mm-hmm. Oh, were you?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to going back. Yeah, meeting a bunch of people there. But here's what's interesting, what I've tried to do. I'd be curious to hear your take on this.
Yeah.
So I lost the weight, but what I told myself is I need to systematically tackle anything I'm afraid of and make it where I'm not afraid of it. Now, there's still many things, like I have not been to Five Guys in many years. I gained a lot of weight going to Five Guys every week. Once or twice a week, I went to Five Guys and I would literally eat myself. I mean, I would gorge myself sick. I mean, I'd go back to work sick at how much I ate. I'd be sweating and just like my stomach would hurt because I would order all the fries and I would eat them all.
It's a lot of food.
If anybody's been to Five Guys, it's a lot of food. Yeah. The little fries enough for 3 people. And it was just me. And I would get the Cajun ones because I knew none of my coworkers wanted it. So then I could have all of them to myself. And man, let me tell you, just a little TMI, but man, every time I did Five Guys, good thing my office was only 2 minutes from Five Guys because I was running there to get to the bathroom. I mean, running.
When you eat that much, your body wants to get rid of it any means necessary.
It's like there's not enough room in our guts, dude. There's too much stuff in here. Evacuate.
I don't throw up easy.
More's coming.
So, yeah, there's only one way for it to go.
Yeah, let me ask you. This is going to be so embarrassing because this is like my reality for many, 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 many years. I had to keep spare pants and underwear in my truck at all times because of two reasons. A, I never knew when I was going to tear a pair of pants, which has happened. But man, the bathroom thing, like that has the gorging myself and not being able to get to a bathroom because I drove a lot for work. Yeah, that ain't happened in a long time. But do you ever have anything like that?
Yes. But it was for the reason, though, that I was so unbelievably sweaty that it would become uncomfortable to sit in my underwear. And so I would have a change of underwear.
Yeah. Oh.
Like if my ass got any
summer?
swampier, ogres would move in. It was bad.
Gold. I had to keep Gold Bond in my vehicle.
It just became a paste if I tried to use it. It was awful, the amount of sweat that I was. And I just thought, like, I'm just naturally sweaty. I had convinced myself I'm just naturally this sweaty.
Dude, me too.
Like, this is normal.
I can run a mile now and barely break a sweat. Like, I'm not naturally sweaty. I was just fat and out of shape, and I wouldn't stop eating.
I was leaking. I wasn't sweaty. That was like I was leaking at that point.
Oh, yeah?
So I did have to have a change of pants at that point, or underwear, whatever it might have been.
Oh, yeah. And these are the things I love leaving behind. It's the stuff like that. I love not worrying about that anymore.
It's nice.
And I worked in a professional setting, so like having to wear button-ups and ties, and I hated it.
Did you have to get darker clothes so that you wouldn't see the pit stains?
Yeah. Undershirts I found helped, like a t-shirt undershirt. But here's man, looking back, I can tell one of my overweightness 100% contributed to me not getting promotions and things at work. I now realize. But I look back, this is going to make some people mad, but I don't care. Looking back now, I wouldn't have given me the stuff either. But it wasn't because I was big. The big didn't help. The problem was I was unkempt. I wouldn't, like, my clothes would be wearing out. You could look at my collars and see, like, the white threads forming where they were just wearing thin. Stuff wouldn't fit correctly. My pants would be wrinkled and stretched. You could see the stitching down the side of the leg. You could see the threads just hanging on for dear life. Because I dreaded clothes shopping so much that I wouldn't go get new clothes because it was a traumatic experience for me every time. It was just so horrible every time I did it because especially I would have my size 40s that I've stretched into 42s and now I'm in my 40. Now I'm having to buy 42s and then I'm buying 42s and a year later I've stretched them into 44s. And so I go buy 42s. I'm like, well, they don't fit. These other pair of 42s, that's because I've stretched them out so much they fit now. And I couldn't buy something because I liked it. I had to buy it because it fit. If I was lucky to find anything that fit and all, pants or short shopping was always a traumatic experience for me. And I avoided mirrors like the plague. I hated looking at myself in the mirror. And so I wouldn't see how bad my facial hair looked. I wouldn't see how bad my hair looked. I wouldn't want to see what the back of my head looked like. Because, the back of you actually matters. Everybody else can see it. But I didn't want to look or know what I looked like. And so as a result, I just looked, in many times, slovenous. I looked sloppy. I looked not neat, not tidy, not clean. And that's the thing I've realized, like, neat, tidy, take it, kind of just trim around the edges. That looks good on everybody at every size. But I just couldn't see that. And so when you're unkempt, and then when I also was the way I was in my body and out of shape, like, I was coming into meetings not looking great, out of breath because I had to hustle a little bit from the parking lot to the car or to the office to be late for the first morning meeting most of the time. Why? Because I was up till 2 a.m. playing video games and snacking, and then I would be woken up at 4 a.m. with acid reflux that was just having me gag up bile. And so now I've gotten 4 hours of sleep, and I had to stop and be late because heaven forbid I miss my my 2 bacon, egg, and cheese biscuits on the way to work. So I would literally already be running behind and have to stop to get food on the way, and I would show up with my Diet Coke from McDonald's in my hand.
Oh, yeah.
I can now, with the benefit of hindsight, look at myself, I'm like, I'm surprised I was allowed in the room. Because my personal life was spilling into my work life. My misery was just showing up everywhere. And I think the only thing that compensated for that is my crippling self-doubt, my crippling insecurities, my crippling self-worth issues made it where I felt like as long as I'm the smartest person in the room, I'll just outstudy everyone that'll compensate. And it did. That was the problem, is it worked. If I discovered if I could just store in my head and on my computer more information than anybody else, and if I could come up with problems, solutions faster and better than everybody else, I would be deemed invaluable. I would be deemed irreplaceable. And it worked. I was irreplaceable, which meant I couldn't be replaced. I didn't realize that was dumb. And I did eventually realize that, thank goodness, that don't make yourself irreplaceable and you will not be replaced and get to move up. And so anyway, it's fascinating to see. It's not the overweight that was the problem. It was all of the things that were creating me being overweight were showing up and manifesting. No one would have known what was going on, but they could just look at me and be like, you are not all together.
Earning my right to be in a room is something I'm still dealing with now. And I'll actually call myself out here because that's something that I do now. Anytime I'm feeling an emotion that I want to get rid of, that I want to keep quiet, I'll call it out. I feel like I sort of just like almost tricked you into letting me be here. Even though you asked me to be here, I'm like, I can't believe that I'm sitting here with Chris Terrell right now. Or like last night when I was hanging out with the guys I was telling you about before, who are all like bigger creators who I watched on my journey and am fans of. Like, how is it that I'm sitting here and when are they going to catch me? It's
imposter syndrome is what that sounds like.
I've got combined like 350,000 followers across all my platforms. I'm like, these people are all here by accident. It's not an accident anymore. It can't be. I'm not here with you by accident. I don't think you would just sort of throw a bone to me and be like, I think this guy's all right. Like, I've done
out of curiosity, because this feeling ends with you giving yourself permission to accept that you belong.
Yeah.
What are you waiting for to give yourself that permission?
I'm getting better at it. I'm not waiting anymore.
What are you waiting for? But what is it though?
I think
what have you been waiting for?
This is a really good question. I think there's me obviously waiting for the burden of proof that like I am accepted and that I'm here and that I belong here. It's a lot better than it was. I know that for sure.
What if that proof I'm not saying it is or isn't, but sometimes the proof that a person needs doesn't exist. It's unknowable.
You switched to hot seat coaching tone, which is different. I don't know if you realize that, but
yeah, because I'm trying not to lead the witness.
But it's very valuable. What if it never comes? I say this to my clients all the time when they're waiting on things or when they haven't started on something, when there's no plan to move forward. One of my plans to move forward is anytime I'm feeling this way, I'm going to call it out because right now I don't feel like I have ownership of it. So if I say it, I talk about it, it's no longer hiding in the shadows like I've been for many years. Now it's out. And now I can talk through it and it'll start to sound a little more ridiculous in your head because when you force your brain to contend with your mouth, instead of just leaving it all in here to bounce around and start echoing and run 1,000 different conversations, you sometimes come up with a different result. Most of the time you do. And I will often prescribe a course of talking to yourself to just everyone I work with. I'm like, these thoughts that you're having, just say them out loud. Whatever it
amazing what that does, just saying them out loud.
Doesn't have to be to another person. It can be. And you're going to sound crazy. But I've got sort of like a low talking tone now that I can kind of whisper to myself, even like when I'm in the store or something. I'll be looking at cookies and be like, why do I want them? Do I want them?
Yeah.
Or do I want them because they're here?
Have a conversation.
Yeah.
You're having it anyway, right? That's what I realized. We're having these conversations anyway. Just do it out loud so you can listen in easier.
Yeah. And then now you're a part of it. It's no longer out because it can start to be automatic in the back of your head. It can just happen without you being there. And then you're stuck with the results of it. And I don't think we realize that.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
All right. I'm curious your thoughts on this. So what you're describing, you're asking yourself a question. Who's answering?
My experience, my results.
Well, those are the answers. but who's providing you the answers?
I think the answers come from those places, the experience and the results, but where I believe you're leading me is, who am I presently? Who am I now? Not what I'm working towards.
No, not going there.
Okay.
Actually, it's actually far simpler than that. It's not even, it's very simple. Like the place I'm trying to direct your mind. Mm-hmm. So you ask yourself a question. Who's answering?
I feel this question. There's 6 in the clip and 1 in the hole right now. And
the reason I'm asking, because this is a question I started asking myself. Because on the other side of the journey, I realized I got to keep this off. And I realized if I'm going to keep this off, I have to level up my mindset even more. And in that journey of leveling up my mindset, I made some realizations that have really helped me. And in it kind of the time we have left for the episode, I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on this, because it's interesting. It's stuff that my dad was trying to talk me through before he died, but I realized I wasn't listening. And so I missed what he was trying to say to me, what he was trying to ask me. So think as simply as you possibly can about this. It's not a complex topic. It's going to seem like it's complex. It's going to seem like it's abstract. It's not. But if you are inwardly, let's say you're doing it inside your mind, not out loud, just inside your mind, you're asking a question. Who is answering?
One, really quick, it's good that you have a hard out at 10, because otherwise we'd be talking for like 6 hours like we do on the phone.
For real.
So, if you want me to come back, I will come back and do that anytime. But who is answering? I would like to say it's me.
Ask yourself a question.
But the fact that I'm not immediately saying that tells me that there's more to explore here. Why is it that I cannot confidently say me and be 100% about it?
Well, you got any theories?
I know I'm still dealing with residual insecurities that a year ago or 2 years ago would have completely muted me from this conversation. Would have been, well, I'm just awful, or I'm just
dumb. Let's think of it something not emotionally charged. Mm-hmm. If you in your head ask yourself, what do I want to do tomorrow? Who answers? You do. As you said earlier, you're right. You answer. Okay. Does that mean there's 2 yous in your mind? Or is there 1 you?
So you're going down the path of, like, we are not who we are externally. This is just like my shirt that I'm wearing right now is just an external representation, just something to cover my body, which is also not me. Technically, it's just something that I'm borrowing at the moment. But you go further down and you just assume, well, I am my thoughts. Now, thoughts are something that happens to us. Like I am experiencing a thought, just like a gust of wind hitting you. You are experiencing a gust of wind. Yeah.
So here's the thing. So you ask yourself a question. Mm-hmm. Now, is that asking of yourself a question? Is that a thought?
No, I believe that is the reaction, which is a step below the thought. So you've got the external, the thought, and then you've got the reactions, which is, I believe, getting to the core of the person. And so that lives in the reaction category. It's not necessarily a thought. The thought happens, and me asking a question to it is my reaction to it.
Okay,
and the reaction is rooted in belief, and I think that's kind of where we...
So we ask ourselves a question.
Yeah.
And you think back the answer. Who is listening?
I'm not high enough for this, Chris. Let's meet over a doob.
It's an interesting question, though, is to think.
Yeah, it is.
If you ask yourself a question and you answer it, but there's not 2 of you in your head.
No, it
but
is. But
there very clearly is a answer, and very clearly is a listener.
there is a delineation. And not only that, but
So
it's
which
not always
one
the
are
same
you?
person answering. Because sometimes the person's going to have a different
So
answer.
are you the questioner, or are you the one answering?
I think I'm moving towards being the answerer. I know I've been the questioner for a long time. No, I don't know if I was either for a while. Come to think of it, because I feel like all the questions were coming to me and all the answers were just fulfilling what I thought other people wanted.
So the answers and the questions were coming to you.
Yeah, they were all coming to me. So there was a period of time
So there's
where
something.
I had nothing.
So
I've had to learn to be both.
but you have both. But so it sounds like you are something else. You're not your questions and you're not your answers. These are just questions and they are just answers.
No, I am the way that I react to them. I am the
Okay.
belief systems that informs my reaction.
Yeah, and we could. This is a rabbit hole we crack open for a long time. I've been cracking this rabbit hole open for a couple of years now, and it's really fun. So I wanted to kind of end giving you some stuff to noodle on too, because I know you're on your own journey here.
Oh, yeah.
And for everybody listening, like y'all, when you get to the other side of the weight, when you have all that mental energy that used to be devoted to trying to find happiness and weight loss, when you can free that energy up to send it somewhere other places to be worrying about yourself, you start to realize that there's so much about life to be learned. There's so much peace that can be found when you don't have to worry about this anymore. When you can free up that mental energy. Think of it as like you go way, way back to ye olden times. The peasants, it was all they could do to survive. But you had the royalty at whatever different culture you might want to look at. They didn't have to worry about that, which meant they had the mental thoughts freed up to think about more abstract concepts, such as the sense of self, such as belief systems, such as understanding how humans work. Like these are things like when you're just trying to survive, you can't think of this stuff. And it's why it's so important, I believe, for a person losing weight, you've got to get your life where you're not surviving. If you're just surviving life, that's not going to work. If you want to lose weight and keep it off, you got to start thriving. You got to start leveling up your life and across all spectrums. But what we're talking about, though, we realize you mentioned earlier about like skinny doesn't equal happy. Weight loss doesn't equal happy. Gaining weight doesn't mean unhappy. And yet very much we experience losing weight sometimes will make us feel happy. Sometimes gaining weight will make us feel unhappy. It's not persistent, but it certainly is momentary. But these are just emotions. And so I've started realizing like, okay, there's more to this. To solve emotional eating, to solve the binge eating, we have to realize that these are effects, not causes. The binge eating, emotional eating, whatever form it may take, from boredom eating to mindless eating to full-on binge eating to stress eating to excitement, happiness eating, all these things, these are an effect that came as a result of cause. And the cause is something emotional. And if we want to really remove the problematic emotional eating, we have to go, okay, well, the emotions are also not the root cause. It's a string of dominoes. So we have the effect of I've gained weight. We go back in the thread, we can see I overate. We go back in the dominoes and we can see I overate because I was stressed and emotional, or because I was like what you were talking about. Life is taking so much and I'm rebelling against it at the drive-thru. If we go another step back, we'll see that it has something to do with our emotional state. And if we go another step back, so what we do is we keep working our way backwards, and you'll see that you can go back a long ways. Most people, they just go back one or two dominoes and they stop. But it's like, but if you keep going back and back and back, you'll find the root causes. And if you eliminate those, all the other dominoes won't get pushed. And what I'm really trying to point to is finding a sense of peace within ourselves, but it's where do we find it? And a lot of this, I'm realizing it's because we must learn how to go within. We must learn how to go within our own minds, within our own hearts. But when you go inside there, when you first crack open the hood of yourself and look underneath it, you'll start noticing, I have these thoughts, I have these emotions, I have these questions. But wait, I'm perceiving all of these. Wait, but if I'm watching them, does that mean I am them? Wait, I'm not my thoughts and I'm not my emotions, but they very much feels like I'm them and I'm looking at them. And you begin to realize there's an observer in you. You're watching all of this happen within you. And we have this conscious energy and habit energy. And what will happen is when we begin to go inward, we'll begin to realize a part of why we gained weight is because we were living unconsciously. And you'll know that when you first start cracking open the hood and look underneath in the hood of your mind, you'll realize you don't know what's going on in here. It's because we've been unconscious. And a lot of weight loss, when I talk about outgrowing the weight, I want people to elevate their consciousness, elevate their awareness to where you get to the place that you can see what you're doing as you're doing it. Because when we can find ourselves there by being intensely present with ourselves, and when we understand, like what you're talking about, how the mind works with the emotions leading to the actions, we can begin to realize, wait a minute, within me is a thinking mind, but I am not my thinking mind. You want to know the number one addiction in all of humanity? Do you know what it is, Mike?
I believe I don't know. I have no idea. I'm trying to think of something.
Okay, I've only said it a few times, but it's thinking.
Well, good.
We as humans are addicted to thinking. We're constantly having to think. We want to have all these thoughts running through our head. And if we don't want to do it, we want to put earbuds in and let the thoughts be fed to us. And so, but when we find this place of stillness where we can slow down and look within and be present with what's happening right now. But that means letting go of the past, and that means letting go of the future and just being present. And that's really challenging if we've identified with those things. So anyway, I just wanted to throw a few things at you kind of for you to continue your own journey of discovery to see where these questions go. Because I'm finding that if I can find questions about myself that the answers aren't apparent, there's some real growth that can be found through the obtaining of those answers.
I hope one of the things that people take away from this, especially with that last thing that you said there, is that you and I are not infallible. We are, in fact, I think some people look to us like we've got everything together, but in fact, I think one of the things we're most proud of is the fact that we don't, and that we don't feel like we do. Because we all know people who think they know everything, and how do we all feel about those people? How do we feel about the people who know everything? They're kind of annoying.
Yeah.
And kind of annoying is a very kind way to go about saying that. So, yeah, don't be afraid to say, I don't know. I think that's going to be the lesson I send everyone off with today. One of the greatest things I ever did for myself was give myself the permission to say, I don't know. When we start off in high school or as kids, our world is very small. It might feel like it's a lot of pressure and it might not be great, but the world that we have to know is very small. And then we get to be adults, we grow up a little more, we get a job, we have some bills to pay. The world begins to expand a little more and a little more and a little more until suddenly you are becoming smaller and less significant in this world, but you still feel like you have to know the equivalent amount of information in the larger world as you did in the smaller world. So now you have to know hundreds of different skills and all sorts of facts and history and everything. You don't need to. One of the greatest things I ever did for myself was begin to understand the discernment between what I need to know and what exists. I don't need to know everything that exists. I just need to know what I need to know to exist. And within that, the universe grows and I stay my same size and I'm happy here. I like that. I like not having to grow with it. I like growing at my own pace.
And I think there's real peace and serenity in finding the place to being okay with not being okay, with not having all the answers, with not having it all figured out. Because I wasn't that way before I lost my weight. I was not okay with being not okay. I was not okay with not knowing everything. As I said earlier, I felt like I had to be the smartest person in the room. So very much I had a debilitating fear of not knowing something. I would lose sleep to make sure that I never had to say, I don't know. Even though I was okay with I don't know, I was terrified to say it to another person. I didn't mind saying it to myself because I knew I'd go research the answer and find it. But you're right. I mean, well, I guess I wasn't okay with it. No, I wasn't okay with it. I just knew I could find the answer, but it definitely brought me great turmoil to say I don't know to myself. But the reality is when we can be at a place where it's like, I don't know the answer to that.
How great is it not to know?
I'll find it.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah,
There's
and if
no
I
pressure.
don't find it, that's okay too.
And also it means
No
that we get
pressure.
to learn something. And that's exciting.
Right? And when I learn something, I'm probably going to get closer to what it is that I want. Yeah, well said. Well said. All right, let's wrap up here. Mike, where can people find you?
They can
if
find
they want to hear more of you.
At Mike Needs a Plan on Instagram and TikTok. I've been told to start on YouTube, so maybe at a certain point, if you're not listening to this on the Friday it comes out, I may have a YouTube thing. And depending on how things go this afternoon, I might be in the Guild of Champions a little bit.
I'm having Mike's going to come do a guest presentation today in the guild. So I'm excited to have that. We don't do a lot of guest presentations in the past, so it's something I'm wanting to start doing more of. Mike, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. It was a real pleasure to have you. I definitely would like to have you on again in the future.
This will be the only episode I don't listen to.
All right. Well, everybody, go check out his stuff. His content's fantastic. If you enjoy my stuff, you'll definitely enjoy the spin that Mike takes on it. Heavy on the mindset, heavy on the emotional side, which, let's be real, once you're past the beginning phases of the weight, like the first 10, 20 pounds of your weight loss journey, mindset's where it's at, because weight loss is a grind. Like there's no way to get around the fact that there's going to be this big grindy bit in the middle where you have been going 3 months of doing the same damn thing every week. Because that's just what it takes. You found a formula that works and you just leave it alone until it stops working, and then you got to fiddle with it again to find the formula that works again. And you're going to just keep doing that all the way until you get to the finish line of the weight loss, and then you'll discover, oh shit, I am constantly going to be fiddling with this forever, because on maintenance, it doesn't stop. There's no finish line to this journey. Leave the life behind that you started off with and replace it with an even better one that you love, that you want to live in forever. The one that makes you think, food is not all I have. I have all these other amazing things. Food is just one of 100 amazing things. All of a sudden, it becomes a lot easier to pick other things when you like them as much, if not more than food. And Mike, thanks again for being here. Appreciate it.
Be kind to yourself, as I've heard.
Choose kindness. All right. I hope you enjoyed that interview. Listening to it as much as I did. I greatly enjoyed my time with Mike, and at the time, now I'm recording the outro, I actually sat through his 1-hour training that he gave in the guild about rewriting your inner dialogue. Oh my gosh, it was fantastic. It was so good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So for anybody that's in the guild, if you missed it, you better make sure to watch it. And if you're not in the guild and you want to come join the guild, which is my group coaching program, you can head on over to theguildofchampions.com, where I can tell you a little bit more about the program. You can also ask about it in the free Facebook group. Just ask around. And I don't really publish a lot of reviews, because I like to encourage people to go to the Facebook group and just ask around and just hear the current, latest, and greatest thoughts from people that are in it. And I think that's going to be one of the best ways to do it. All right. Have a great rest of your day, champion. Can't wait to see you next week here on the Chris Terrell Podcast.